The Victorian era is generally associated with starched clothing, lots of black, and showing as little skin as possible. Probably the last thing you would think of is a sexual piercing. During a brief period in Victorian England, wealthy women would pierce their nipples, often connecting them with a chain. As for men, they would pierce their private area, supposedly making it easier to comfortably wear the increasingly tight pants of the era. This piercing is known as the Prince Albert and is rumoured that the Victorian prince himself sported the look. The Greeks had a very different idea of power brows. In ancient Greece, women's unibrows were considered a sign of intelligence and purity. If they didn't have one naturally, women would stick mouse fur to their brows or use pigment to draw one on for that bold and beautiful look. 17th century England saw an increase of cleavage in fashion. Necklines plunged and breasts became one of the most prominent features that women attempted to display. At the same time, extreme paleness was in style. In order to extend the paleness achieved by powders on the face to the cleavage, women would draw blue veins on their breasts to mimic translucent skin. If you ever get tired of brushing your teeth, this is a good alternative. For thousands of years, Japanese women would blacken their teeth permanently after marriage. This continued through the 19th century and was a symbol of beauty and marital commitment. Women's legs are highly admired these days, but back in the Middle Ages, and well through the 18th century, men's calves were what it was all about. Men wore stockings like women in order to show off their well-shaped calves, and some even wore padding inside their stockings to improve their unsatisfactory gams. King Henry VIII, for example, was renowned for his excellent calves. In the 18th century, the previous standard of barefaced women disappeared and women began wearing makeup heavily. They also started wearing beauty patches, small pieces of fabric that were adhered to the face. They came in many shapes such as stars, circles and squares, and the placement on the face had significant meaning. For example, one by the mouth implied flirtatiousness, and one on the right cheek meant that a woman was married. During the Renaissance, short teeth were considered beautiful. They just loved their gummy smiles. Although foot binding is perhaps one of the most infamous forms of body modification, its origins in China are unknown, though historians know it was prevalent among the wives and daughters of nobles by the 13th century, and it spread from there. Foot binding usually began with a girl of 5 to 7 years old, and it consisted of her feet being bandaged tightly while she was growing, causing the bones in the foot to break, the sole to bend down and meet the toes, and the toes to bend under the foot. The painful and disabling practice was based on the sexual and aesthetic appeal of small feet. Beginning around 100 BC, the ancient Maya started modifying the skulls of their infants. A child's head was kept strapped to a board or bound with various implements, forcing the skull to reshape itself. This was done to both males and females, and is believed to not have been related to social standing, but a sign of ornamental beauty, and many groups all over the world have had similar practices. The Chinese have a long history of long nails. Both men and women of the Qing dynasty grew nails that were 8 to 10 inches long, and some women wore gold nail guards in order to protect their rather inconvenient manicures. This was to indicate that they were wealthy and that they didn't need to labour with their hands. Instead, they had to rely on servants to do things like dress them, feed them, bathe them, and help them with their toilet needs. For European women during the Middle Ages and Renaissance, eyelashes became symbols of over-sexuality, and the fresh face was in. Thus, women of means would often remove their eyelashes entirely, which sounds way too painful to begin thinking about. Thanks to nylon shortages during World War II, women's stockings were lacking. However, the tan appearance of stockinged legs was still considered necessary, so dozens of paint products meant to mimic the look of nylon hit the market. Tea and gravy browning were also popular options, and an eyeliner was used to draw a seam up the back of the leg. The corset is one of the most famous examples of body modification, designed to create a small waist and lifted breasts. From the 16th through to the 19th centuries, women wore a variety of corset styles, some tied so tight that they created trouble even to breathe. However, in the 19th century, corsets evolved in order to support the new beauty trend. Instead of the high and tight cleavage of the past, women wanted to have a distinct gap between their breasts. Cue the arrival of the divorce corset, so named for its function in separating the breasts and creating a distinctive broader cleavage. If you ever looked at Renaissance paintings and wondered why the women seemed to look so strange, it's not just you. Large curved foreheads were an important indicator of beauty, and women would pluck or shave their hairline to increase the size of their forehead. Basically, they created a receding hairline on purpose. Women's fashion during the Edwardian era was all about celebrating the mature female body. That meant using a corset to create an hourglass figure. However, some people worried that the tight, constricting undergarments hindered women's breathing and put undue pressure on their internal organs. Enter the S-bend corset, which eased the stress on women's waists. Instead, it was designed to throw the hips back at an exaggerated angle. These corsets created the look of a bustle without all those extra layers. However, they forced wearers' spines into an unnatural position, causing them to walk with an exaggerated sway and sometimes inflicting lasting damage. And this concludes the video. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please click the like button, give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe for future videos. Thank you.